Welcome to Make and Decorate, a podcast for makers who love to sew, quilt, knit, and decorate. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my very favorite month, October. Apple picking, done. Pumpkin spice latte, done. Da Bears football, check. Received my autumnal crayon yarn, check. And I will chat about some of that stuff in the Chit Chat segment at the end of this episode. I have to say that I am very excited about this episode, and I was thinking that I want a more interesting way to convey why I am so happy to present this guest to you. And I think it is this. You know, when you're at a quilt show or an art show or anywhere that you see beautiful handmade creations and you think to yourself, I feel a strong connection with this art or quilt or whatever it may be. It could be the colors, the way the fabrics are put together, or the way that negative space sort of frees your mind and calms you. This is what I saw when watching Kate from the Last Homely House's video showing us quilts made by Chris English. So let's listen to this conversation. My guest today is Chris English, a quilter from the UK known for sustainable and improv quilting, thrifting textiles, and generously sharing his techniques with quilt guilds, magazines, and much, much more, including becoming a fabric designer, which we will talk about. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, how are you?
Great. It's so nice to have you on my show today. Ever since I saw you on a YouTube video, I just kept following and wanting to learn more and more about you. So the first time was like a few years ago on the Last Homely House, and you were talking with Kate at the Festival of Quilts.
Oh, okay,
which is an annual quilt show in Birmingham, England.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just loved seeing how you mixed fabric prints with like just everything. Like there was this one quilt that I absolutely loved, and there was like this pink toile that you had down the right side, and you have like plaids, which I love plaids, and all of these like found fabrics that you put together in a really great way. So that's when I first heard of you, and then
thank you for inviting me on.
Really, thank you so much for coming on. So for everyone, Chris is, like I said, in England, and I'm here in Chicago, and we're recording for my upcoming season 7. So this will go out in the fall in a couple months. So I thought that my listeners would really love to learn more about your story and how we can incorporate recycled and upcycled fabrics into our quilting projects, because we all have those types of fabrics, and sometimes quilters don't necessarily know how to incorporate them, or they feel self-conscious that it's not going to look good.
Yeah, very much so. I agree with that. Yeah,
so we'll talk about that. But first let's start where you're from and basically your personal quilt story.
So I live in a place called Huddersfield, which is in West Yorkshire, which is in the north of the UK, more or less in between Leeds and Manchester, if you know where those places are. People always ask how long have I been quilting, and I suppose actually making quilts probably about 7 or 8 years. But my story goes back before that, because I went to study textile design at university, and in fact it even goes before that. I was talking to someone the other day about school and what I enjoyed at school, and I remembered screen printing some fabric and making the fabric that I printed into a pair of like board shorts, I suppose you'd call them. And I was probably 15, 16, so a long time ago, it's fair to say. And I perhaps didn't realize at the time that was textile design. I was just doing it because I enjoyed it. And then I went to university to study it, and I loved it. And I went to Liverpool Art School, and it was amazing. I got to draw and paint all day, and Liverpool's a great city to go out in at night and have fun. And I had 3 amazing years, but the challenge was that when I left, I wasn't equipped for life in a very commercial world, and nobody wanted to pay me to draw and paint all day, unfortunately. So I at that time, I suppose it was at the late 90s, early 2000s, and I went back to study and I went and did a top-up degree in web design because I thought what I need to do to have a job was to get some actual commercial useful skills that people would pay me for. So I went and did that, and I had a view on wanting to get a job at the end of it, which I did, and I still work for that same company, albeit in a more of a manager role. But yeah, I still work there. But it isn't as creative as what I like as I'd like it to be, I suppose. So life kind of happened, I suppose. My son arrived and different things happened. But over that time, I'd always maintained an interest in print and pattern, and I love going to exhibitions and I love traveling. We were just talking about me visiting Chicago, and I had an amazing time, and I take a lot of influences from a lot of different places, and hopefully that comes across in my work. So whilst whilst I've only been quilting for 7 or 8 years, a lot of my kind of background is related to art and design, and that informs my practice now.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Same with me in a different way because I went I went to school first and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I started in pre-law, then I switched and finished with just a general business. And then after being in the corporate world, I needed to get creative. I really just
Yeah.
so I went back to school for interior design
Oh, wow.
and learned about architecture. I do love, and Chicago is really good
Of
architecture.
course it is. Yeah. Yeah. You've
Yeah,
got
in
loads
fact,
of,
they even have this little architectural boat sort of tour that kinda takes you on the river, and
right.
you can see all these really magnificent buildings.
Yes.
So I understand that inspiration coming from there. So that's wonderful. And, it's pretty kind of sad that we can't make money doing our creative things.
Yeah.
Even now that we are you can make money, it's just you have to do several things in order
Yes.
to.
Yeah. So I've been in my job for 20 plus years, and what I am hopefully working toward is being able to reduce the amount of days I do in my corporate job and spend a day or two on my more creative stuff. And I think at one point in my life I thought that was a failure because to say you were like a creative, you had to be in it full time. But really, I think the more I think about it, the opposite is true. In that, if I can use the corporate job to pay the bills and pay the rent and have that steady income, and then have the other couple of days, and that there's an argument that says that that's the best of both worlds, and you can if you can make it work, then you've got to make it work for you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think it's actually kind of like a good, a good gig to
Yeah, yeah, it can be. Yeah, it can be definitely.
have, right? Because you get your creative outlet as
Yes,
well.
exactly. And
Yeah,
that's to be fair, that's one of the things, I love about quilting. During the week at work, people in a very corporate environment, people are, yeah, that's right, that's wrong. Whereas with my quilting, the only person that can decide on that is me. And
right.
other people can have opinions, and I love hearing what people think of my work.
Mhm.
But,
Mhm.
ultimately, if I want to use the pink swirl next to the plaid, then that's my call, and no one's going to tell me not to.
Mhm. Yeah. True. So true. Okay. And then so you said you were quilting for about 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah.
So how did you find quilting?
So as mentioned, I'd always been interested in art and design and print and pattern, and I came across the Liberty Book of Home Sewing.
Mm.
I love Liberty fabrics, and they're just incredible. But it had this book, and in it there was a pattern for a quilt, and so I thought, right, I can make that because I've got, I had an old sewing machine, and I thought, right, I can make that because it was just straight lines, and I made it. And I thought I had to buy Liberty fabric, so I bought all this Liberty fabric, and I thought, right, okay, let's do this. So I made it, and I loved it, and I loved the fact that I could take it from design all the way through to quilting it and binding it, and then I gifted it to someone. And I look back and the corners are awful. The corners are terrible. They're like a curve, but it just got me hooked, and I was straight into it then. And then I soon, of course, realized that I didn't need to buy Liberty fabric and that I could use whatever fabric I wanted. So that
Mhm.
was quite that first quilt was quite influential, I suppose, in many ways, because Liberty fabric is expensive, right?
Oh, isn't it?
whereas shirts and old fabric from the Goodwill shop are a lot cheaper.
Right, right.
So, there is as
Yeah,
well as an aesthetic thing, there is a value thing as well.
right. I know. I love Liberty too. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's nice to that you Liberty could be used in quilts because you need a smaller amount of it.
Yeah.
Because if you make clothing out of it, it's just like yards and yards you need.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. But
Oh,
I do like incorporating it still, and you can spot it. People who know, right? With Liberty,
oh
you can
yeah,
spot it a mile away, and
I
that's,
can spot it.
yeah, exactly that.
I
Yeah.
love it so much. That's great. You have this aesthetic when you're making your quilts because this is the great thing about modern technology. I can virtually be at the Festival of
Yeah.
Quilts through like Kate's YouTube channel, and she did
Yeah.
a great job the last few times that she did videos from there. And she had you just come by your quilt. You guys were standing in front of your quilts,
Yeah.
and you were able to talk about it. And Anna did a great, camera work and stuff. So I could
Yeah.
really see all of that great detail and how you put together these fabrics. And although you're using, you know, shirts from here and maybe curtains from there and stuff, I think it's also maybe because of the way, who knows, like if your textile education had something to do with it, or you just have it innately, you're able to blend it all to where it looks aesthetically pleasing
Oh, thank
and,
you.
yeah, and interesting.
Yeah.
Really just like, wow.
Thanks. I think with my quilts, what the process I use when I start them is I'll often, like, there's one I had at festival this year. I don't know if you've seen the post on Instagram where there's a Long Island beach flag in it with a seagull on it.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so often I'll find fabrics I like, and then where I store my fabrics, I say store them, they're all in one room and it's a bit of a disaster zone. But I often find that the combination starts suggesting themselves. And whenever I teach, people are always unsure about their fabric choices. And always try and encourage people to trust their instinct because I think, we each day we get up and we dress ourselves, right? So we know what colors we like and what we don't. And that to me is just quilting is just an extension of that. So I often start my quilts as small samples. So um, the quilt from this year, I was looking at courthouse steps blocks, and I was super interested in those. So I just started working a couple up, and then I thought, okay, so I've made that piece. I set it aside, and then I started working on something completely different, something a little bit more improvisational. And then over time, I start laying them next to each other and seeing how they work next to each other, and then sometimes I'll just join if they're the right size, then they get joined. So some of it is um it's quite an improvisational process, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that fascinating, and, I'm starting to be able to do that more and more, but this my discipline and design where you have to have your schematics done, and, so my brain sort of works that way, and I
Yeah,
enjoy, like, pulling it together. Like, I love to pull fabrics first
same. Yeah,
and stuff like that, but now, like, I'm being more free of, like, I don't
yeah,
have to have everything. I can choose it, but I can change where it goes now. It doesn't have to be where it says it on, the schematic or whatever,
yeah, absolutely,
the plan, like it does on floor
absolutely.
plans and stuff. So, yeah, and I like that about, your style because it's just that's, something that I learned from and, have fun with because it's not as natural to me to just, be that free and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the time, if I'm when I go to the flea market at the weekend, I'll look around, and if I find something I like, I'll buy it. And it might not be right for the current project I'm working on, but if I like it and it's a bit different, then I'll keep it and I'll have it in my stash
Mhm.
ready because I know I'll use it one day.
Yeah.
A lot of the fabrics I get, some of them at the moment, I'm having a bit of a floral kind of Sanderson vibe. And some of those fabrics, whilst you might think they're a little bit old-fashioned, but when you cut them up small enough and put them with something contrasting, they work pretty well, I think.
Sanderson. That's
Yeah.
high end.
Oh, it is. But you can find like if you go to the car boot sales and the flea markets here, you can find old curtains that are Sanderson and cushions. And
Oh,
I found some, some beautiful fabrics that are super good value. And yeah, and I just think as well, if you're buying fabric from a source like that, then you're going to have a unique quilt as well, because it's very unlikely someone's going to use the same fabric
oh
in the
yeah,
same
for
way.
sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You guys have all of these cool high-end design fabrics over there, like Designers Guild.
Yes. Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I love them and Count and Tout. So yeah, if I imagine you could really find some great I don't find them too much around here other than, because I work with it for design, but
Yeah.
um, oh my gosh, that is so great, Sanderson. And even though you might say like the florals might look old fashioned, but the way that they're done on their fabrics looks very artistic.
Oh, they're beautiful. I love them.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely love them.
they're very well
The
done. Yeah.
yeah, they're amazing. The quality's amazing, and
Mhm.
I think I've like a nice big floral next to a load of smaller, tiny like one patch squares and everything. I think that's the contrast that I'm into, and I think
Yeah.
stuff like that just looks because
Mhm.
it's I suppose it's an unexpected combination, but I just think it works. That's kind
Mhm.
of what appeals to me.
Yeah, and then you also put like a really strong pop of color for accent, whether it's in your hand quilting part of it or
Yeah,
just small pieces of a super bright yellow or
yeah.
something, but it's not overwhelming. It's
The
just
yellow, that
in the
yellow, I
right
had a
spots.
yeah.
Yeah.
That yellow that I use, I bought a length of it's like a needle cord, so it's a very fine corduroy. It is
Mm.
super bright, and I've run out of it now, I think. But yeah, people always notice that,
Yep.
I like how it pops versus the different combinations.
Me too. Yeah, it really works well.
Oh,
And then going back to like my whole like, disciplined mind, I think about like doing like what you do brings me back to when I was younger. I was very creative as a kid. I mean, I was making my own greeting cards and all the crafts.
yeah,
And I was very free. I never as a kid thought was insecure about what I was making. I
right.
just did it
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
loved it. I did though steal the crown logo from the Hallmark and I put it on the back of my cards.
To give them a bit of authenticity.
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I think you're right there. And sometimes I think as perhaps we get older, and particularly in the certain parts of the quilting world, there is an emphasis on perfection. Now that is always a worry
Mhm.
for me. But now listen, I love traditional quilts, right? And I think they're amazing. And I think um, usually at the festival each year, the International Quilt Museum brings an exhibit, and they're stunning. The work's amazing. They weren't there this year, but the UK Quilters Guild had a exhibit of coverlets from like I think it was like from 1750 to 1840, and they are the most beautiful quilts. The fabrics are all kind of muted, but there's some bright colors, and they're stunning. So if you get the chance, you should look at those. I put a post on Insta about it actually.
Oh, good.
So I am absolutely influenced by traditional quilts, but
Mhm.
where I don't get as hung up is on like points matching and stuff.
Yeah.
For me, it's not a concern.
Well,
If
and
the
sometimes I think it just steals the joy.
Yeah, absolutely, and
Right?
this is meant to be fun, right?
Yeah.
And it's meant to be a break from the
Yeah.
getting everything right in the
Yeah.
corporate world. So for me, that's kind
Mhm.
of a bit of freedom that I enjoy, and I don't mind if the
Mhm.
points don't match. All the
Yeah.
quilts I make, sorry, all the all the quilts I make are practical and they all get used. So
Mhm.
they are actual practical sleep underneath them quilts.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. I think that's one of the things I also love about quilting is that they're functional,
Yeah,
yet
exactly.
the form can be anything and so beautiful and whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. All right. So I guess I mean I was gonna ask you what keeps your interest, but I think we just talked about that.
Well, I've got lots of interests, it's fair to say. I collect lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, some people might describe me as a hoarder, but I don't. It's more eclectic, and I think people often ask me about color inspiration and stuff, and I genuinely think you can find it anywhere. And I go to a certain flea market every weekend, and whether it's an old postcard or ticket or whatever it is, sometimes I have my little A5 sketch pad at home, and I'll bring stuff home and I'll stick it in that. And I don't exactly plan a quilt out, but it might be that there's a couple of different tickets and they'll sit next to each other. And I think, right, that's an interesting color combination.
Mm.
And sometimes I'll draw over the top and add other bits in, and it's almost like just like a little sketchbook of ideas and stuff. And then I'll expand that and think about how that might work as a quilt, or how a particular shape might suggest a particular block and how I might use those.
Oh, that's interesting. So so that actually is a great idea for quilters who might feel insecure about what they're putting together, is to kind of keep like this inspiration notebook
Oh, completely.
around.
Yeah. So sketchbooks, I love a sketchbook. So I like
Hmm.
just looking through it. But I mean, most people now have got a phone that will take photos. So you can take a ton of photos, and you can get color inspiration on that dead easy from
Hmm.
anywhere really.
Hmm.
So I just
Yeah.
think keep looking
Yeah.
around, and that's where the inspiration finds.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the other key thing you said is that you collect what you love. So like
Yeah.
that's for me too. I really need to love it if I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to collect it, you really have to love it. So,
Yeah. Completely.
which makes a huge difference, I think, because you go through all your fabrics in your collection, and you're going to pull out a fabric because you love it. You got it because
Yeah,
you loved
exactly.
it.
Yeah, and that's what I said earlier, I suppose, in terms of trusting your instinct. As long
Hmm.
as I think, like, if I'm making a quilt and I like it, then that's the main thing, really. I
Hmm.
think people do worry about their color choices, and they do think,
Yeah.
there's, so such and such a color shouldn't go with that and everything. I kind of disregard a lot of that, and if
Hmm.
if I like how it looks, then that's what's happening.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point for people to think about, because there is so much out there with Instagram and everything, and then all of a sudden there becomes this trend of like, oh, now these are the
Yeah,
cool colors
absolutely.
that you should only use. And I tend to one of the things I also like about your quilts, because you do tend to gravitate towards colors that I love, like I see some pinks and purples and
Yeah,
blues
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that I really love
Pink and
in
blue
your
are my favorite
quilts.
colors.
Yeah, I love
Pink
blue,
and
pink,
blue.
and purple. Those are all my favorite colors. So yeah, I see that too. So that's why I gravitate towards
Yeah, I
your
think as well.
quilts.
I think as well. A lot of people get into quilting, and this is just my theory, so it could be completely wrong. But I think a lot of people get into quilting through books, and then perhaps subsequently through kits.
Hmm.
So there is, if I think with that approach, the book has a very kind of structured way of doing something, and then subsequently the kit does. So I think that lends itself to people thinking that's how it has to be done, and therefore it's quite hard if you've done that for a few years to break out of that.
Hmm.
It takes, you have to take a definite action to say, actually, no, I'm not going to follow a kit, or I am going to
Hmm.
just choose my own fabric. A
Hmm.
lot of the time, the kits come, and for me, choosing the fabric's the fun bit,
Hmm.
or one of the fun bits. But
Yeah.
it's sometimes people buy the kit, and that fun part's taken away from them.
Hmm. Yeah. Kind of, if you really want that, spectacular, just one of a kind feeling, then the kit's not going to give that to you.
No,
The kit will give like people who are super busy at
yes.
least the satisfaction of making it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
that's sorry. That
But
sounded like I was
but
knocking
to
kits.
take
I'm not.
no, 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 no,
Yeah,
it's fine.
there is nothing wrong with kits.
There
There's,
isn't. Not at
there's nothing
all.
wrong with kits. Let me be super clear on. They can be a great introduction,
Hmm. Yeah,
and they
for
can give
sure.
people the skills and everything. Absolutely. And I started with the pattern from the Liberty book, so I suppose I started almost with a kit and a book. Yeah, so that's fine, and it's not a criticism. It's just I think an observation more that
Right,
that's
right. Yeah.
you
And
know
I think, with right now, sustainable quilting, which is what you do,
yeah
um, it's just like sort of like a next step. Because like like you said, when you first start quilting, you need somewhere to start.
yeah
And I've gone through the whole like, oh, I gotta like get the cool designer's new fabric collection every single time, and it's just too much.
yeah
So
just
I've
too much.
gone beyond that now, and so now
Yeah
I'm into like more of what you do a little bit more, although I haven't really gone gung ho with it yet, but
right.
I'm tucking stuff away in my
Oh,
mind.
absolutely. And
And I'm
I
bringing
think,
stuff out as I can. Yeah.
yeah, I am when I teach, lots of people, we're all at different stages of our quilting journey, right?
Hmm.
And so some people will get to, and I don't think it's a linear thing either. I think you can go in a whole load of different directions, and there isn't really a destination. I think it's as long as you keep enjoying
Hmm.
it and trying
Right.
something, then that's
Right.
cool. And
Yep.
it isn't, it's not necessarily to say my quilt journey must take me and my quilts must end up looking like whoever's, but
Hmm.
as long as you're enjoying the process and
Hmm.
improving and expressing yourself through it, then I think that's
Right.
that's that's the amazing thing.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about you had a Kickstarter project,
Yes.
and this now follows fabric design. So you
Yeah,
designed
absolutely.
fabric, and
Yeah,
what the cool thing is, and you'll talk about this, but I loved it, is that it's locally screen printed from
yeah,
where you're at. So talk about
absolutely.
that.
So when I suppose fell in love with screen printing when I was at university, and I did it and I loved it. But then, like I mentioned, kind of life happened. But then when I was into quilting, I was like, right, okay, so I can use these fabrics. And then the logical next step for me was to start thinking about how I might create some fabric that I can use. And I wanted to create something that I could use alongside the sustainable fabrics that I use. What I didn't want to do was add to the growing amount of fabric in the world. Rather, I wanted to create something that lent itself to working with plaids and florals and old curtains and stuff like that. So that's what I tried to do. And so I launched it on Kickstarter, which was amazing, and it was successfully funded. And I'm now just in the middle of, it's August now, so I'm just in the middle of shipping those out to people. And I had backers from all over the world, so in the UK, Australia, States, Canada. So yeah, and it is only on a small scale at the moment, but I enjoyed the process. I think it's come out really well, and it's given me ideas about another project and how I might, do some more of that sort of stuff.
That's great. Yeah, the small scale fabric design, I think is wonderful, and probably we need more of it out
Yes.
there. I think, and I saw you on Kate's YouTube
Yeah.
channel just about a couple months ago. She put it
Yeah.
up. You were visiting her, and you talked about it, and um, one of your fabrics has it's more like sort of like the silhouette
Yes.
pattern, and you actually took it from real flowers.
That's right. So
I
I'm
was
really
like, "Oh
lucky.
my god."
Yeah. So I'm super lucky where I live. Just
Awesome.
near in the next kind of town on, there's a open access screen print. It's a print workshop, but they do all sorts of printing. But they've got a space for textile printing, and nobody uses it. So I joined, and it the membership fee for the year wasn't that expensive. I got a screen, and I just started experimenting. So broadly, if you're familiar with the screen printing process, what I did was I coated a screen and then I found these, I went to the park and I picked some flowers and I pressed them flat and then I exposed them directly onto the screen. So I used those actual flowers as the kind of transparency,
Mm.
washed it all. And then, yeah, printed it myself. So it was me and a friend went and we spent a couple of days printing about 20 meters worth of fabric. Um, and it's come out really well. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I want to do
Yeah.
more of it.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
Thank
I
you.
really loved that, because the style that you did, looks very, contemporary, and you had other just, like, some organic,
Yeah,
stuff on there, but I just thought the combination of those botanic silhouettes in there just, like, made it to a different level. It was
oh,
really
thank you.
cool. I like that combined in there because I have a mix of traditional,
Yeah,
that I love too. I'm not all straight, like, I can't be. I can't be straight modern contemporary. I just, even with interior
yeah,
design too, I mean, there's got for me, I probably do lean even more towards a little traditional, but I still do like some clean lines and all that other
yeah.
stuff, and that's what your fabric reminds me of. It's
Oh,
like a
thank
good
you.
mix of that, very
Yeah. Well,
eclectic. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good
Mhm.
word. I definitely hope so. And I like it's black and white. So I just wanted to print one color because,
Mhm.
as you start trying to print more colors with screen printing, it becomes technically harder to do and harder to get right. But I like the black and white versus some of the super multicolored
Hmm.
fabrics that I'll use. So it's that contrast really.
Yeah, and it works well with, like you said, existing found, upcycled fabrics of the plaids, all the other stuff that has color.
Yeah,
That is a good sort of contrast to it.
absolutely.
Great. So that was your Kickstarter, and you have a subscription
Yes,
coming
that's
up,
the next plan.
right? Yeah.
That's the next project. So what I'd, and again, this is all an effort to at least move into doing less time in the corporate job. So I'm thinking about a subscription box where what I'll do is I'll print some fabric. And so if you subscribe to it, you'll get a printed, I think I'm going to do maybe fat quarters, like a box of 4 or 5 fat quarters. And you'll get other fabric that I've sourced, vintage fabric, and then some recycled fabric as well.
Ooh.
And what I'm thinking about that I'll make a project, and it's for people if they want to make the same one, they absolutely can, or they can just do what they want with the fabric.
Mhm.
Um, and that's cool. So I think that's my next project. And I'm looking to start that later this year, early
Ooh, I
next year.
like that. Yeah, the vintage, because again, it's very unique and special that it's like vintage fabric that you found that's
Yeah,
one of a kind, and that's going to be in their subscription box only.
yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. I love it.
Oh,
Great.
thank you. So we'll see
Very
how that
good.
goes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and then what I'd like to do with that is if the first couple are successful, what I'd like to do, I um in the summer here, it's when most universities graduate, and I've been to some of the degree shows of textile and art students, and what I'd like to do is work with like a new graduate designer to print their fabric, and that would go in the box. So it'd be something completely new and different, and
Oh.
it'd help that designer have something commercial in their portfolio, but then it'd also be beneficial from my perspective of having something brand new and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Almost like
that is,
a collective sort of
yeah,
thing.
exactly that. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. That when you say that, it's pretty cool, and that just reminds me of the William Morris, the
Yeah,
way that they
yeah,
did things as a collective,
absolutely.
and now K Facette does that too.
Yes.
And oh, speaking of, wasn't it so brilliant? I saw him, and I don't remember if it was Kate's or I watched a bunch of videos of festival, and he was on there admiring your quilts.
Yeah, it was wild.
Wasn't
Yeah,
that crazy? Oh my
yeah, it was really
gosh.
crazy. He's such a nice guy. He's
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I
Yeah.
watched that video a few times, and but it was interesting actually because he absolutely understood what was in my mind when I was doing it. So that was cool.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and, I thought it was interesting too. This one, he was talking, I think, to Kate, where he doesn't really love the, quilted to death type quilts where it's
yeah,
just I think his words were quilted within an inch of their life.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that was, I think, one of his comments, compliments to you of like how you know, combined your machine and the hand quilting, which I love too. I
yeah. I
I
like a mix. I like a mix,
love
definitely.
that a lot. It just brings so much more texture and
Yeah,
character to
absolutely.
to it. So yeah, that was cool with K Facette.
Yeah, he's cool.
Okay, so talk about this festival because it really it just ended, like it was last weekend. Yeah,
Yes, it was. Yeah, it ran from
yeah.
Thursday through to Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in Birmingham, which is right in the middle of England. And it's been going, I think, since about 2003. And I've been going for the last 5 or 6 years, I suppose. And I love the show. It's brilliant. And I think the main reason I love it is because anyone can enter a quilt and it's not juried. So you can enter, there's a limit, you can enter two per category, but there's like 9 or 10 categories, and they're not too strict on the rules of they suggest what defines a category, but it you can enter pretty much what you want and people do. And I think it's amazing because it just lets people enter, and so you see a real mix of people's first quilts through to people who are professional quilters, and they hang them next to each other, and it is a very I suppose open and interesting show. And I always come away full of new ideas, and I love going to it. I also like going to bump into quilt friends and stuff like that. But the the inspiration you can get is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you also like Aurifil thread too, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I suppose when I first started getting into quilting, I didn't know about Oracle as a brand, and I went to a local quilt shop and they recommended it, and yeah, I have stuck with it since. And I had my Oracle collection probably a couple of years ago now, so that was exciting. Uh,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, I did one based
Nice.
on street art. In fact, some of the pictures probably came from Chicago actually, but
Cool.
yeah, so that was exciting, and that was. I had seen that different designers had their own collections, and I thought, wow, I'd like to have that. So I
Mm,
pulled together like a little mood board, and I sent it. I sent it to Orifel and said, I think this would be a good idea for a collection. And amazingly, and still surprisingly to this day, they said yes. So that was something I didn't even think about when I first started quilting. I had no idea these designer collections existed.
hmm.
So to have one was super exciting. Yeah, it still blows my mind a little bit, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm working on a new one as well with them, so that should be hopefully out next summer.
Oh, great. Yeah, and they just it's going to be out this fall, but they've introduced the 8 weight
Yeah,
thread.
I've had a go with it. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, I've used
Oh,
it in one of my quilts that was in festival. I got some samples, and
oh,
it's beautiful. It
nice,
sews
nice.
beautifully.
That's great. Oh,
Yeah, you can really see the
awesome.
stitches, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
spend
definitely.
hours doing them, so I want to see them.
Yes, for sure.
Definitely.
Oh, great. So then there's one other thing that you've done this year. I mean, as if you haven't done enough. You're actually super busy for also having a full-time job.
I am, but my house is a mess.
Don't worry. So it's fine. I think we have similar fabric stash
And
situation.
similar priorities, perhaps.
Yes, for sure. But okay, so this hashtag Team Bear Paw 24.
Yes.
Um, what was that?
It, 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 it's taken on a life of its own. So earlier I mentioned that I experiment with traditional blocks and I think about how I can use them. So I'd made a couple of bear paw blocks and I posted them. I think I made four and I put them in a nice little square and I posted it on Instagram and that was all brilliant. But then someone said you should think about doing a group quilt. And previously in some of my quilts, I'd used orphan blocks that people had sent me. And last year I'd used about 7 or 8 signature blocks that my friend in the States had sent me. And I entered them into a group quilt. And because I knew their names, I put us all down as the makers. Now I think the blocks were from the kind of 40s or 50s. So these people may not still be with us, but I was super hopeful that um, they'd be pleased that they finally ended up in a quilt, finished in a
Hmm.
quilt.
Yeah.
So, I put it in as a group entry. So it was Chris English and like all these different names. So one was Annie Mae somebody, and it was a very American name. And so it kind of was very evocative of like what I thought of like 40s, 50s America. So that was cool.
Mm.
And then this person suggested that I should put a call out for bear paw blocks. And I thought, well, why not? And lots of people I speak to, they say, oh, you entered a quilt at festival. And I'm like, yeah, of course I have. And I'm like, have you? And they're like, no, no, I'm not. My quilts aren't good enough, which, people's quilts are good enough. Um, so when I put a post out on Instagram saying, do you want to enter Festival of Quilts? Um, and people were like, yeah. And I thought when I put it out, I'd get 15 or 20 blocks. I got about 250
Wow.
from all over the world. So from Australia, South Africa, the States, Canada, Thailand, all over Europe, loads of, and you know, in the approach to last Christmas, I was coming home from work and there were all these envelopes and packages and stuff. And it was amazing to get all these blocks. And so the big bear paw quilt, which has been on Instagram quite a bit recently,
Hmm.
was finished at 3 meters square, which is pretty big. So that's
So
about
that's
what,
well over well,
yeah, it's about 10 foot
our,
square. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was trying to convert
Yeah.
to
So it's
our
about 10
imperial
feet.
system.
There's a there's a good picture of me on Instagram, stood in front of it. Now normally I'm quite
10
tall,
foot
so
square. Wow.
I'm relatively tall, and
Uh-huh.
the quilt drowns me. It looks like
Wow.
it looks massive against me. And then the other one is about probably 8 feet by 10 feet because I didn't quite have as many blocks. And then some people's blocks arrived a little bit late, so they went into a different quilt. But
Mhm.
every block I received, I used.
Wow.
And, and then the I got a tattoo, Team Bear
I
Paw.
saw that on your Instagram.
Yeah, so I got some stickers
Awesome.
made because it what happened was people included these letters and cards with their blocks, and some of it was super powerful stuff. People had sent blocks made from clothes they made for their kids that no longer fitted, from bed sheets, from all sorts of
Mm.
stuff, from shirts of people who had passed,
Mhm.
and stuff from fabric they'd been keeping for in some cases years, and they didn't
Mhm.
quite know when to use it, but they were like, yeah, this is the occasion to use it. And when I did my talk at festival, it dawned on me that the quilt was really just a vehicle for us, for people who are into this sort of thing, to share like memories and feelings and stuff. And it was just amazing because all these blocks come together, and individually they look good, but together
Mhm.
I think they look amazing.
Mhm.
And it's the strength of all the different individual blocks that make it such a powerful piece, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And so yeah, and because of that, I was like, wow, how am I going to remember this? So I've got a couple of tattoos anyway. So I thought, well, one more won't hurt. And then because not everybody wants to get a Team Bearpaw 24 tattoo. I had some stickers made as well, which are based on the
Oh,
original artwork. In fact, where's this?
nice.
Hang on.
Did you make the artwork for that?
I that's the sticker.
Oh, that's so cool.
But
Love
so
it.
I drew it. I did a very rough sketch of what I wanted it to look like, and then the tattooist I see made it professional, and
Mhm.
then based on that artwork, that was the actual tattoo, and then I got some stickers made off that artwork, so it's pretty identical to my tattoo.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
And so
so
that'll,
cool.
I wanted to remember it forever, so I thought, well, that's one way of definitely doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and also like the stories that all these blocks tell gathered into one, and
Yeah.
it's very like sentimental. That's the other thing
Yeah.
I love about quilting is that
Oh, absolutely.
it's a very personal and full of sentiment.
Yeah,
So,
completely. And
yeah.
it was fun at festival. So I did the talk, and we did half an hour kind of like as a talk, and then we went and looked at the actual quilts in
Oh.
situ. So that was cool. And lots of people were having their photo taken, pointing to their block and stuff, which was
Oh, that's
exciting.
awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. And there were loads of people there that, they said to me they would never have entered festival
Hmm.
on their own, and they were super excited to be part of it. And likewise, people from different countries and stuff were like, well, I may never get there, but now I feel like I've been a part of it, which was
Yeah,
again something I hadn't realized I was enabling, I suppose.
sure. Now they can say they've had,
Absolutely.
something shown at Quilt
Yeah.
Festival or
And who knows?
Festival of Quilts. Ours is
Yeah.
Quilt Festival. Yours is Festival of Quilts.
Yeah. It might encourage them to enter their own quilt,
Hmm.
or that it
Yeah,
might encourage them to do a group quilt. So,
yeah.
they might just be satisfied at that, and that's
I'm
any of those
starting,
outcomes are fine.
yeah, I'm starting to see more group quilts showing up at the shows, more
Yeah.
than I've noticed before, which is really great.
Yeah, it's really good. It's
Hmm.
really good.
Do you think you do something like that again at all? That's a lot of work.
Not for a while.
Right?
Not, I don't think
That
there'll
was
be a
pretty
team.
epic.
There
That was
won't be a
kind of
team
like a
Bearpool
drop the mic
25.
thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe I'll give it a couple of years, and
Yeah.
it's. I think if an idea comes to me,
Hmm.
that's when I'll do it. So, but I
Cool.
don't think it'll be next year.
No. That's great. Yeah, you have to let this kind of like just
Yeah,
run its
decompress.
course, and
Yeah,
yeah,
completely.
yeah, for sure. All right, so this is so wonderful. Before I let you go, I did want to talk about, because there's something that we sort of have in common is football in your country, which is
Yes.
soccer. Uh, it's football all around the world, and of course, the United States has to be different and call it soccer.
Yeah. I'm not sure of the origins of that, but yeah, it's
I know,
football.
I don't get it either,
No, I
because
don't
our
get it.
our football has the only thing that makes it a foot to the ball is when the kicker kicks it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just passing like rugby.
Yeah, it's more thrown, isn't it, than it is
Yeah,
kick.
it's more thrown.
But
But anyway, so yeah, my husband and I enjoy the Premier League.
yeah.
And so now you said you're in Huddersfield, but that's not like what are your teams? Because I know
So
you're into.
Huddersfield did have a Premier League team about 4 or 5 years ago, but they were relegated, sadly. And
Okay.
they went down to the next level down, which is the Championship. But
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, last season they were relegated from that. So
Oh.
they're now in League One, which is still it's still a very good league, and
Hmm.
it's professional, and it's a very good standard.
Yeah.
But the closest team, I suppose, that's in the Premier League now are probably Manchester United and Manchester City, and then Leeds have been in quite recently. But they're in the Championship. But
Yeah.
I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan because I was born relatively near London, and Spurs are a London club, so I've always had an affinity for Spurs, and that's who I support.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the Spurs too. And well, I just kind of like it depends on who's playing. So
Yeah,
I always pick one of the two, and I always stick with Arsenal a lot. Tottenham for sure.
yeah.
And then Manchester City, I like a bit more than United. Nottingham. So I don't know. I kind of like all the teams sort of, but there's a few teams that I'm just like I don't know. You know more than me, but I just feel like Manchester United is a little mean spirited.
I mean, now I'm not that familiar with American sports, but I think, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. I would liken Manchester United to the New York Yankees,
There you go. Yep.
or perhaps the Patriots.
Oh, that I would say Patriots more for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I can feel that
Yeah.
vibe. But
Yeah.
I must admit, I do like. I've been fortunate to have traveled to America for my last few holidays, and I love coming to the States and watching football because it starts like super early, and it gives you an excuse to go to the pub at like 9 in the morning.
Right. Yeah, because we usually watch those games in the morning
Yeah, exactly. They're
time
all in
because
the morning.
you're
So
6 hours ahead.
yeah,
Uh, even though you're playing in the afternoon. But
yeah. So
that's
that's
funny.
fun.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden there's these American like grouping owners ever since Ryan Reynolds
Reynolds,
and
yeah,
bought Wrexham. And then
yeah,
so now we've been all like, and Wrexham is like was all the way at the bottom
yeah. They're on the way
of
up.
the
Yeah,
and now they're on their way up. It's
absolutely. Yeah,
crazy. So crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's cool. It's
But I
good.
loved that TV show, especially the first season when the town of Wrexham, which is in Wales,
Yes, it is. Yeah,
um, they really weren't sure, and for good reason, because you don't know
yeah,
if they're gonna
yeah.
just
Could you?
kind of turn your town into like a you
Yeah,
know just for
like
kicks
a
and
theme park.
giggles. Yeah, like a theme
Yeah,
park, exactly. But no, they were definitely more invested in it, which was
yeah. They,
great. And
they
and it
really are.
was really nice to see the stories of the local people there. And
Yeah.
there was always these two older ladies sitting outside the pub just talking about it, and it was too funny. But just so that people in the States understand that the way that they structure the Premier League is that, Premier League is the very top league,
Yeah.
let's say like the professional
Yep.
in the States. And then eh, there's a chance that they can get relegated where they
Yep.
get sent down to like what we would consider minor leagues. And there's how many levels of that? Four?
Well, so I suppose with professional football, there's probably the top 5 or 6 are certainly professional. So you've got it's the top one is the Premier League, then the Championship, then you're into League One and League Two, and then beneath that there's a whole host of different teams at that level,
Mm.
and they're effectively feeder leagues. So they can go into those divisions. In theory, a team could go all the way from the very very bottom all the way to the very top, and vice versa. But of course, the big teams, they're quite
Yeah.
they have all the money and stuff, and
Right. Right.
it's
Money is
very
the
rare
other.
that that happens.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah, the
rare.
other thing
But there's
about that.
but that's where I suppose a team like Wrexham will and are making progress. So they have got some relatively wealthy owners. I don't know if they're as wealthy as the person who owns Manchester City, but um, they can progress, and that's the good thing
Mhm.
about it. So there is
Yeah.
relegation.
Yeah, we were talking about it, my husband and I, and it's just like it's it, it would really be a cool thing if our NFL did that because we love that there's always a chance for the
Yeah,
teams to work their way up to the big
yeah,
league, you know,
absolutely.
and instead of like just like the fixed teams and it makes it more interesting and
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
It adds a bit of jeopardy, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time and coming to talk with me on my podcast. I really enjoyed it. I knew that there was a lot more to your story that I really wanted to really get to. So I appreciate it. I really do. And I'm so glad that I was able to, learn about you
Oh, thank you.
through Festival of Quilts with those videos, Kate's in particular. So it was
Yeah,
really
well, thank you
great.
again for having me on.
Mhm. All right. And I'll put everything on the show notes, the links to your Instagram and all of that.
Super,
And
thank you.
the upcoming if you people are interested in signing up for your subscription box too in the future.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Thanks.
Thank you. And I will be back in about 20 seconds with the chit chat segment. All right, here we are, chit chat time. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Chris English. I really did, and I learned a lot. And I love getting fresh, new inspiration and ideas from people who are doing really cool things. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I am loving my favorite month of the year so far, October. The trees are just starting to show their colorful leaves, but it will be at least another week or so before peak fall colors are here. And it's weird because it just seems to happen overnight. And then you wonder what happened. But they are so beautiful and just for such a short amount of time. So enjoy it if you live in an area where you do get all four seasons and some beautiful fall foliage. Football season is also a big part of my autumnal landscape. My Chicago Bears were featured on the HBO series called Hard Knocks, which is a sports documentary show that's been around for a really long time. And every summer, the HBO film crew follows an NFL team through their training camp during the month of July and August. So the Bears have never been on the show, and it's been on for like 15 years. So they were on this year. It was a lot of fun to watch it leading up to the season opener. And what I love most about this show is the behind the scenes look we get with the training, stories on the players and their families, and how the players and coaches interact. And then just some of them are mic'd up for, their preseason games and stuff. So it's really cool to see all that, especially when it is your home team that is on this show. And so far, we're doing okay. Not great, but we're doing good so far. So much better than last year. So knock on wood on that, right? I am not a huge fan of lots of pumpkin spice, but it just seems like it's not officially fall until I've had my first pumpkin spice latte of the season, which I have. And the autumnal yarn from Creo came last week. I ordered it, and it is every bit as gorgeous as pictured on the website. Plus, the feel of the merino and mulberry silk is so soft. It's just beautiful. And one thing that you need to be accustomed to with hand-dyed yarn is dye lots are going to be slightly different. The yarn I received is just slightly lighter than the picture on the website, and that is great. I love it. But all the colors are there, so it's represented well. But it's just something that if you're not used to hand-dyed fabrics are the same and yarn, that's what happens. And it's actually kind of fun. It's kind of fun to see which kind of dye lot you're going to get. And On my dye lot, it's a little bit more berry colors into definitely those beautiful coppery russets and plums, everything. So now I just need to watch the Pearl Soho video and how to do the provisional cast on to get started on this Pico hat that I want to make. All right, and I just have one more topic that I want to talk about, and I'm calling it cool stuff. I see lots of cool stuff like knit-alongs and products and patterns that I've shared with you in the past, but now I'm going to organize it into its own little sub-segment of Chit Chat called Cool Stuff. So here's some cool stuff that I've got for you this episode. Arne and Carlos are doing a mystery knit-along, and they're going to post some more information on it on the 13th. Of October, which is just in a couple days from when this is published, on their YouTube channel. Plus, they've released their 2024 Christmas ball patterns in their website shop. They were on sale last week, so if you're already on their newsletter list, you already got their email. And every time they release these, they do put them up for sale for a short amount of time for like 20% off. So it's a really good deal. And the designs this year look really cute. I'm excited about them. Another thing that's going on is Alice Caroline. The UK-based Liberty Fabric Shop is hosting another sewing festival called Alice Caroline Christmas Sew-Along. It's the same format that they did this past spring that I participated in. The sign-ups are open now at early bird pricing, which is almost half off the regular price. There is a project for a variety of sewing types like quilting, zipper bags. On this one, I also saw a really cute stocking, a garment project called the Sicilian Top. There's English paper piecing, card making ideas. And on this one, I don't remember if there was on the last one, but now they also have a project with foundation paper piecing. And this one is everything is done in Liberty Christmas fabrics and are Christmas related. However, the little zipper bag that I saw in there, it's really cute. It's made from postage stamp pieces. That could be done with, any type of fabric. And it lends itself to anything. And I'm sure like the top and everything like that too. So even if you're not like a huge Christmas fan, there are these projects can, except for the Christmas stocking, of course, they can lend themselves to regular everyday items and projects to make. The other thing that's really cool about this Alice Caroline sew-along is that they release ahead of time the materials that you would need to make these projects as you watch the videos, which is very nice. I think that's a unique thing. And then once they actually publish the videos, because the sew-along is virtual, and it goes on for like 6 or 7 days, and every day they release 3 to 4 like little workshops for these projects. And the designer of the project is on a video, and they basically give a tutorial of how to make their project. And then you get the patterns at that time. So it's a lot of fun. And this one starts in November, like about the first week of November. So it's also a really good time. It gives people some time if they want to make stuff for Christmas decorating and for little gifts for people. There is a online sashiko class that I took in the summer with Atsushi Futasuya at Upcycle Stitches. I've talked about Atsushi before, and I took his Domestica course. It's really good to start with the Domestica course. It's very preliminary, and it gives introductory to sashiko, a little bit of history and culture about it, and the general overview of the techniques. it doesn't really get, the Domestika doesn't get into the actual techniques, but you can get a good idea on how to start with sashiko stitching. The course that he offers on his website is the same as or similar to his in-person course. It's called like the core, the essentials and core sashiko course, and this is where you actually learn the technique and everything like posture and how to hold your needle and everything that you would need to know to do sashiko stitching. And the sashiko stitching that you learn is the actual like traditional way that it's done in Japan. I know that every sashiko I don't know, artisan stitcher may have a little difference to the way they do things, just like with us, with our sewing. People stitch their English paper piecing shapes together differently. And so, I'm sure this is the same with sashiko. But I really do like the way that he presents it. And I took his online course this summer. I've been wanting to take it for a while. It is an investment, but I love it when this happens. It exceeded my expectations, and it was phenomenal. Like I said, it's a commitment. It's a time commitment and a financial commitment. And I recommend, if you want to take this course, to take it when you have a free weekend and extra hours for practice. Practice is really essential to learning this, especially if you haven't learned this type of sashiko stitching before, which I don't really think anybody else teaches it this way that I have seen. I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure other people do, but this is just the first time I've seen it. And it's just like I said, it was phenomenal. And just to give you a quick sort of synopsis of what happens is that it's a series of videos like any online course is. And then what's unique about it is that the final part of this course is a Zoom live session with the instructor where he answers the questions you have. He observes your sashiko stitching live on camera. So it's very flexible. He helps you with how to set up your camera and stuff, and sends it out ahead of time. It gets scheduled. It's very organized. I like that too. And I set up my phone as an overhead camera, and then I had my computer camera, so switching back and forth so he could see the stitching, which is really key. It really was like as if he was there watching me stitch. And prior to the live stitching, he highly recommends for the students to email a short video of themselves sashiko stitching before the Zoom live so that he knows what to focus on to target exactly what it is that you may need to help you with your sashiko stitching. So I did that, and I know it seems nerve-wracking, but once you're in it, the Zoom live, it really wasn't. I was very comfortable because he just has that laid back personality. He's not intimidating. He's very encouraging. And that live session, though, really was like I don't know, the piece de resistance, but it was just like completely necessary in order for me to totally get the movements or what is called the unshin, which is the rhythm of the stitching. And I had been gripping the needle too tight. And so you just kind of, it's those little things where you don't notice yourself that you're doing, and you just subconsciously just do certain things that once I lessened up on the pressure of the needle, it just went much more smoothly, the stitching. So I really wanted to talk about that with you guys because I feel like it's the same like with interior design and any type of service product that you would buy. Word of mouth really helps to give a more accurate idea of what it is that you should expect or can expect with it. And so I really hadn't had any of that from anyone else. Like I hadn't heard anyone say anything about this course, so I didn't know what to expect. And once I completed it, I thought, really, people need to know about this because the way that it's done is, like I said, unique. And if you really have, I don't know if serious is the right word, but like a serious interest in this and learning it this way properly, I guess you could say, this is like the course to do. And if you're going to QuiltCon, he is going to be there again this year. He was there last year, and he will do. He's signed up to do a lecture. That's I think the lecture is free, and if not, it's just like a nominal cost of like how their normal lectures are priced. And then he also does this class at QuiltCon, but of course it's been like, signed, it's been booked for months now. So there's, unless, people cancel out, and there is a waiting list. So if you do plan to go there, maybe try the wait list and you might get lucky and have him in person, which would be cool too. I'm testing out a new to me product. It's not new out there, but it's the first time I'm using it. And it's actually two products that work in tandem. It's the True Cut Quilting Ruler and Rotary Cutter by Grace Company. And it is amazing, smooth, and precise. I didn't have great expectations for this. So I just, it was on sale and I decided to get it. And the way it works is that it's a standard sort of like a 6 by 24 or 6.5 by 24 inch quilting ruler. But there are little cutouts through the acrylic of the ruler so that you can mark your fabrics if you want to. And on the sides of the ruler, there's a little lip where the rotary cutter that is made to work with this ruler sits in, and it glides on the edge of that ruler so that it doesn't wobble or like stray from the fabric. You know how sometimes that happens if you're not holding the blade right up against the ruler, it can like completely go off course, and then you like cut into the fabric at an angle. Come on, we've all done it, right? And so when I first used it, first of all, I'm like, wait, this isn't working. I don't feel it cutting at all. And then I realized that it did cut the first time. I just didn't feel it. It was that smooth and that precise. And I was like, no way. So I did it again and again. And it was only just one layer too. So I don't know. You know how like sometimes you fold up the fabric when you want to cut strips or shapes and you cut 4 at a time. I haven't tested it like that, but for a single layer of fabric, so far, it's really, really great. I am completely surprised. There is no pressure on my wrist, arm, or shoulder when I cut with it because it's in that groove, and you just really don't need to exert that much pressure down onto it. So, yeah, I haven't been using it very long. So I'll continue to use it and then I will report back to see if I still do love it. And the other thing about this rotary blade cutter is that there's a little piece on there that is removable. So if you wanted to use it just as a normal rotary cutter with your other quilting rulers, you can just, take that piece out. And I thought that was great too. Makes it a lot more flexible and usable with other rulers that you would have. But right now I just keep the attachment on there because I think it's a great it works great with the ruler. One last thing before we end this episode. There is a new type of wool thread that I just got. I talked about this on last month's Patreon episode. The thread is a French thread. It's called Laine Saint Pierre. A link is in the show notes. I ordered mine from Brooklyn Haberdashery. They had 4 bundles of 12 threads in collections. I think it was sort of like by seasons. So the one I got was the autumnal one. And there were just beautiful jewel tone colors in this collection, which is so timely with my favorite season of the year. Last week, I stitched with this thread. I have never used it before, and it was interesting to see how it worked. And the only other wool thread that I have used is the Appleton's, and that's 100% wool thread, which is great. I love it. And I will definitely always use some Appletons. And the other one is Aurifil's wool thread that you can actually use in your sewing machine. So that's a bit more fine of a thread, but you could also use it on hand stitching as well. And so now this one is different because it is like a 4-strand floss, and it is a blend of wool and poly. I don't know if I would ever separate the strands, but after thinking about it, maybe, well, and I haven't ever done this either, is mend socks. And I actually, though, I do still have, I don't have the heart to toss them yet because they're only worn in the heel, of course. And these are a pair of smart wool socks. So if you have smart wool socks, you know what an investment they are because they're wool. And so maybe I will try to mend the heel on some of these now that I have this wool poly blend, because the poly will give it the strength that it needs against the friction of your heel and this in the sock on the shoe. So anyway, back to I used all 4 strands. It really made a beautiful chain stitch. I did some decorative embroidery with it. And what I love about this thread, as well as what I love about the Appletons, is that wool has that fluffiness and the texture that it creates when you do use it for hand embroidery. So it's great. And the colors are so rich. And the texture is so soft. This could really look amazing embroidered onto sweaters, and even like a small detail on the sleeve cuffs would be pretty for visible mending, and even, like I said, non-visible mending of wool socks and sweaters. This thread is really could be used for a lot of different things. So if you want to check it out, I put a link to where I ordered mine. But when I went back on to the website to get the link, they are completely sold out of the bundled 12 color collections. But they do have stock of single skeins of all the colors that they have. So if you want to try it out, you can just get a few of the single skeins to test it out and see how you like it. Well, if you're still here with me, thank you so much for listening to the very end. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Have a happy October, and I will chat with you again in a couple of weeks. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Please help support this podcast by following me on Instagram at stephanie.socha.design and my YouTube channel at Make and Decorate. Also, check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/makeanddecorate, where you can subscribe to receive an extra podcast episode every month. Until next time, keep making and decorating.